You are listening to the Atlanta Sports Podcast, the only podcast covering all of your teams. Bringing you the best sports news from the state of Georgia, from the professional ranks to the high school levels, we have it all. Hello everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Atlanta Sports Podcast. My name is Frankie Maloof and I'm here with Luke Winstall. Today we're going to give you a little bit of a snowpocalypse version of the Atlanta Sports Podcast. We give you something here to listen to while you're stuck at home in the snow here. It's not quite snowing yet, that's expected to come, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Atlanta Hawks today, and mainly their recent move, trading Kyle Korver to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Luke, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Frankie. It's nice to be on. Haven't talked about the Hawks in a while, and lots of things have happened and changed since we last did an episode about them. So we'll start off and kind of tell you how they're doing in case you haven't been paying attention to the team. They are fourth in the Eastern Conference. Their record is 20-16. They're currently on a 5-game win streak, and they're behind the Cavs, Raptors, and Celtics. They currently own the 4 seed in the East, so the Hawks are doing pretty good. I mean, I predicted in the range of probably 3 seed at best, and I'm thinking a 5 or 6 seed at the worst. They're hanging in that range right now, and some recent news, as you mentioned, with trading Korver. The Hawks retired Pete Maravich's number, which was 44, and with all the All-Star hype going on right now, none of our Atlanta Hawks are in the top 10s of the All-Star voting, none in the top 10 of the front court or back court, so Dwight Howard is not getting the votes he needs, and also Dennis Schroeder, if you think he's worthy of maybe going to the All-Star game. Both of them are not getting the votes from the Hawks fans, so maybe go out there and vote if you haven't already. Try to get one of our Hawks players in the top 10, but so far there are none.
Yeah, and you know the Hawks, they're right around that range that everybody expected them to be at, 3 to 6, like you said. You know, before the 5-game win streak, they actually were not even close. They were down at one point. They weren't even in the playoff picture at all, which is a little bit surprising from them. But they're back where they need to be. I don't see them going too much higher than this, but that 5-game win streak has been nice. And then the Kyle Korver news came as a little bit of a shock to me. I know I was not exactly... My first reaction wasn't exactly a good one to this trade. I didn't like the trade. You know, when you sit down and think about it, it makes more sense. But still, Kyle Korver's a fan favorite. He's been here for the last several seasons, especially his 3-point shooting that helped carry the team, the 60-win team, to the playoffs in that number 1 seed. All the fans here respect him and really like to see him play, so that's a little bit of a disappointment for the Atlanta Hawks fans, but I think it's for the better.
Yeah, you mentioned he's a fan favorite, Frankie. He really is. I love Kyle Korver. You love Kyle Korver. A lot of people like him because there's really no reason to hate him, and all he's ever done is help this Hawks franchise. He was a very, very key part of this team when they had that nice season in 2014 and made it to the conference finals. And he's done a great job. 3-pointers are, if not, probably one of the most exciting plays in basketball. And Kyle Korver could hit them consistently, pretty much always posting a high percentage. Last year may have been a bit of a down year as he was coming off an ankle injury. But this year he's done fine. And he's drawn some trade interest, as of course we saw from Cleveland. And they made the move. I think for Cleveland it's a great move for them, getting another 3-point shooter to put in there with Channing Frye and J.R. Smith. So now you have LeBron James and Kyrie Irving the defenses have to worry about, and then you have the floor-spacing perimeter shooters. And, you know, I'm glad the Hawks are probably not going to be in that playoff contention now because there's no chance. There's no chance to beat Cleveland in the East. The only team that probably can right now is Golden State. San Antonio may have a shot at them, but I highly doubt they get past Golden State to make it to the finals. So it's going to be a good finals game. I think Cleveland is slowly gaining on the Warriors in terms of that, and now Kyle Korver is going to be a part of the Cavaliers, and I hope the best for him. I hope he wins a ring and things like that with Cleveland. He deserves it. He's had a great career. He's a very hard worker. A lot of coaches and players have talked very highly about him. So I'm happy for Kyle to be in a good system that'll really help him out as a player. And also I hope he gets that ring with Cleveland.
Yeah, for him, it'd be nice for him to get the ring. As we said, everybody around here in the city of Atlanta, they all like Kyle Korver, and they all respect him. And, you never know. He probably will come back here maybe after his career's over and settle down in Atlanta again. But see, this trade, it's a little interesting because it kind of gives me the impression that the Hawks have given up a little bit this year. Like they want to maybe continue the rebuild like the Atlanta Braves did a few years ago, and we all know how much pain and suffering comes from a rebuild like that. So do you think this is what the Hawks franchise wants to do, where they're headed?
Well, I think the Hawks are not quite rebuilding. I think it's going to be restructuring. And I say that because they've got some players in place that I don't think they're going to be able to move. Those players being Dennis Schroeder, who recently got a contract extension, Dwight Howard, who's got a hefty contract and a couple years left on his deal, and also Kent Bazemore in the same scenario with Dwight Howard. More on the contract. Bazemore was handed a $70 million plus contract in the offseason over 4 years. So we'll have 3 more left of Bazemore. And I think those players are going to be hard to move. So you've got a few players. The Hawks are not going to be terrible with them. And I think it's not going to be the total strip down and rebuild, but I think the players that are not part of the future will go. And I think those players are probably going to be Paul Millsap, because I'm not sure the Hawks are going to be able to pay him, whether he wants to be in Atlanta or not. And also Thabo Sefolosha, I think he's got good value. He's a nice starter. I like to watch him play, but if you can get better value on the trade market than you can in the rest of this season out of Thabo, I say that he should go too. But just those two. I don't think it's one where you trade the whole franchise away. And I think the Hawks are going to still try to stay competitive, but also with the draft picks they'll hopefully get from Thabo and Millsap trades, they'll be building towards the future and trying to draft a superstar instead of having to trade for one or buy one in free agency.
And you mentioned some teams right here I'm looking at that possibly will be interested in Paul Millsap or Sefolosha. You mentioned the Kings and the Raptors, and then also the 76ers are the 3 main ones you talked about. Now, the Raptors would be interesting. I don't know if I'd want to see the Hawks keep feeding the top teams in the Eastern Conference. If they feed the Cavaliers with Kyle Korver and give the Raptors Paul Millsap, which you put here as a possibility, that would be interesting, because then both of those teams would take our best players from here in Atlanta and go and add onto their squads and make them even better.
Yeah, with Paul Millsap, he turns 32 in February, so like I said, kind of backing up how I don't think he's going to be a part of the Hawks' future, and I think the future is going to be probably, I think it's in the next, after 2 years, so I'm thinking probably 2019, the Hawks will be back where they were a few years ago. And I think they'll be competing, because I think Cleveland will be trending downward, and the East may become a little more open than it is right now. I think that's when the Hawks want to make their move and have their players, like their 2 first-round picks from this year, be developed into either starters or big-time guys and contributors. So I think with Paul not, in my opinion, being part of that future in the next, not just playoff run, but championship run, I think trading him is the right idea. I think whoever gives you the most is who you give him to. If it's the Raptors, okay, because they'll just get Millsap for the rest of this season. They'll have a shot to re-sign him, but you never know. And like you were saying, that would be pretty scary, because the Raptors have their 2 all-star guards in Lowry and DeRozan. They also have former Hawk Damari Carroll, and then there's Jonas Valanciunas and some good other players around them, some good role players on that team. So they could give Cleveland a pretty good shot with Paul Millsap on their squad. So I think that would be interesting. About feeding the teams in the East, I'm really not too worried about that. It's right now, the league is just full of super teams, and I think if the Raptors are going to be one, then they're going to have to give up some good key pieces, but I think it'll end up being good for the Hawks. With the Kings, the whole trade would be complicated with the first-round picks and the whole deal with them. Also, they don't have a whole lot that they could give the Hawks, but if they're interested, they could probably come up with something in a package for Millsap. And the 76ers, like you mentioned, I think they could give us a good young forward or possibly some pretty high draft picks, just package whatever the Hawks feel is right. I think those are the 3 best trade candidates. There's also some others that have expressed interest, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And those are the Nuggets and the Pelicans. And they could maybe get something interesting going, but I'm not sure about that. And also the Celtics are interested, but I hope they don't trade the Celtics, because I'm not a big fan of them after they went out and stole Al Horford from us, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, and you mentioned that maybe 2019 would be the year that the Hawks would be possibly competitive for the championship again. And 2019, we got that first-round draft pick from Cleveland, so we would potentially have first-round draft picks that year, assuming we don't trade one of them away. And possibly more, depending on what they do with Paul Millsap and, like you said, Cephalosha. Those could be interesting. Now, I think that the Hawks, I don't know what they want to do. Their vision is a little bit unclear, because we're still trying to figure out if they want to compete this year or if they want to try to compete in the years to come. It's unclear as of right now what they want to do. But once that becomes clear, we can talk more about, kind of the vision and what they're going to do with the picks going forward.
Yeah, and like you said, the vision is unclear for the Hawks until they make that next move, whether it's trading or keeping Millsap and or Cephalosha. We're not sure really where the direction is going, even though right now it looks like they're going towards that rebuilding/restructuring. But I think we should probably go ahead and make it clear what, as of now, the Hawks are getting for Kyle Korver. You mentioned a first-round pick, so I wanted to talk about who else the Hawks were getting. And it's Mike Dunleavy, according to the reports right now. In case you don't know a whole lot about Mike Dunleavy, currently with the Cavaliers, of course. He played his college ball at Duke, was the number 3 overall pick in 2002 to the Golden State Warriors, where he made his debut. He has 14 years of experience under his belt, and his stat line at the moment, he's averaging 4.6 points per game, 2 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game. He's shooting 40% from field goal and 35% from behind the arc. Also, his free throw percentage is about 74%. So he's a decent player. He's nothing great, nothing special. At this time, he's getting on the older side. So that's who the Hawks are getting. According to the recent reports, like I said, Mo Williams has also been mentioned. So until that's officially announced, which we'll have on our Twitter for you, at ATL Sportscast, is where you can follow us there. And it's going to be interesting to see what they get, but it's not a whole lot. But what really matters is that 2019 first-round pick. It is protected, so it's got a certain value to it, so it can't be like a lottery pick most likely. But the Hawks are still getting high-level talent in that 2019 draft. Again, assuming it's not traded.
And I don't think Cleveland would have a lottery pick. It could happen, but in 2019 it seems too close to their superstardom right now with LeBron James for them to get that lottery pick in 2019. But it's always a possibility. So we're going to move on. You talked about a little bit who will not be touched for sure. We talked about Dwight Howard, Dennis Schroeder, and Kent Bazemore. They all have bigger contracts, which is why most teams probably will not take them. And those are all big contributors to the team this year. And I'm not saying Kyle Korver wasn't, because he is. He just had a little bit of a smaller contract. We were able to get something for him. So I do think that if somebody were to take something for Dwight Howard or Kent Bazemore or Dennis Schroeder, if somebody were to offer us a really good deal, those are also possibilities. But as of right now, they're pretty much set in stone that they will not be leaving the team this year.
Yeah, and it's not just that the contracts are going to be hard to trade as well. They're very good players, all three of them. But the issue with the contract, just to make it clear, is just the teams may not be willing to take on that much money. It's a pretty big cap hit. So that's just another reason outside of them just being core players on this team. And they also have a lot of money, which is hard to move.
All right, so we're going to get to some team leaders real quick. Just run through some stats. Through the season, like we said earlier, they're 20-16, fourth in the Eastern Conference. Their team leaders, Dwight Howard is the leading rebounder with 13.1 rebounds per game. Paul Millsap, 17.8 points per game, is the leader there, but Dennis Schroeder is very close behind him with 17.7 points per game. Dwight Howard also is the leading field goal percentage leader. He is 63.9% of his field goals. Most of them are up close in the paint. And Dennis Schroeder is at 6.3 assists per game. And then Mike Muscala, instead of Kyle Korver leading the team in 3-point field goal percentage, Muscala is leading 45.3% on his threes. And then Dwight Howard is leading with 1.4 blocks per game, which interestingly enough is not higher than the leading block total from last year. Paul Millsap had 1.7 blocks per game last year, so Dwight Howard is not affecting this team as much as he could have in that category as possibly it was expected. So we're going to talk about Kent Bazemore for a minute while we finish up with him. What's up with him, Luke?
Well, with Bazemore, he definitely earned his big contract last season. Had good three-point shooting, defense, and free throw shooting. That's pretty much what you're going to get out of Bazemore. So again, he deserved it. His stat line was like 11.6 points, 5 rebounds, 2.3 assists per game. He was shooting about 36% from 3, getting about 4 attempts per game. And he was about 82% from the free throw line, but this season has been a different story. He's been hitting only 29.6% of his threes. He's got 3 rebounds per game, which is down a couple. And he's only shooting 68.4% from the free throw line, which is a big step down from that 82%. And a lot of people are regarding that as troubling. It's an area where he was really supposed to shine. And field goal-wise, he's only hitting 37% of them. Again, below, basically 5 points below his career average. So that's, and also down from last season's number, it's not great. Bazemore, if he was great in other areas besides defense, then it would make up for the bad offense, but he doesn't do too many other things well, only averaging 2.6 assists, 3.2 rebounds per game. Like I said, which is just not enough. He ranks in the top 20 for defensive efficiency, but right now is a borderline offensive liability at times. He's inconsistent. Against Orlando, hit some nice threes the other night. I watched the entire game, and it was just a pretty good game all around from Bazemore. He's just not doing that enough, and it would really help the Hawks if he could bring something else to the table on offense.
Yeah, and that big contract, he did earn it last year. He had a great year, and he was expected to be one of the bigger pieces this year to help move the ball around and be able to shoot well, especially now that Kyle Korver's gone. If the team had this in mind, potentially trading Kyle Korver away, obviously in the back of their minds, they knew that Kent Bazemore could potentially shoot the threes and be able to make up for it defensively as well, but that's not what's happened. He's had a down year. You could maybe call it a sophomore slump a little bit with the Hawks after last year, a really good rookie season, basically. This year wasn't as good, so, look for him. He needs to step up, or else nobody's going to take him, and the Hawks are going to end up eventually putting him on the bench, or even maybe later down the road cutting him.
Yeah, and when you say kind of rookie season last year, I see what you're saying. It was his first big time getting a lot of minutes, and now did a good job with it last year, just not as good this season. It's been a bit of an issue, and if you think back to our John Fricke interview, it was episode number 18, when we talked about the Hawks with him, John Fricke from 92.9 The Game, who we interviewed, he's just straight up telling us Kent Bazemore is the X factor. If he plays well, the team wins. If he doesn't play well, then there's a pretty good chance the team is not going to have a good chance to win. And that's what's happened. When Bazemore's had a good game, the team is winning a lot of the time. And when Bazemore does not have a good game, or he doesn't have a big impact on the game, then the team is losing. Like back to Orlando, that game, it was just the other night. Had a nice game, again, hit the threes, played some good D, and overall basically helped lead the team to a victory. So it's just things like that, and just watch out for it.
Yeah, and so we're going to take a look one more at who has most improved this season from last season. So we got 3 candidates here: Dennis Schroeder, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Mike Muscala. So Luke, let's start off. You start off with Dennis Schroeder.
Okay, with Dennis Schroeder, what we like about him, he's improved his overall shooting efficiency, so that's a good thing. His overall play has gone up. He's getting very close to leading the team in points per game. So Dennis has done pretty well, but the number one guy on this list really going into the season should have been Kent Bazemore, so I want to mention that after just talking about Kent. He's not on our list right now, most improved. He might be most disappointing at the moment, but there's still a lot of time for him to turn it around. So, Frankie, who do you think would be number 2 here?
Well, number 2 is Tim Hardaway Jr. He's a much more confident player, and confidence is key. We talked about this the other day. I think it was with Michael April in our Falcons interview the other day. Confidence is what really makes everything tick. If you don't have confidence, you're not going to be able to do anything. And for the Falcons, confidence has been key because now they finally hit their stride. Tim Hardaway Jr. is starting to hit his stride. He's averaging 11.4 points per game. He's off the bench still, so being confident that you can go out there and perform even though you may not be the LeBron James of the world, that's key, especially for a team that's a little bit struggling. Now, the Hawks aren't struggling as well, the 5-game win streak, but still not being number one, and they were at one point, like I said earlier, they were not even in the playoff picture. So just gaining that confidence back little by little, it's going to help greatly towards the end of the season.
Yeah, Hardaway has really impressed me this season. Hitting some threes, so now with Kyle Korver being gone, he might be able to take some of that three-point shooting role and help out to fill in for Korver. And number 3, we said, this might be a bit of a surprise because there were some people out there that did not want the Hawks to keep Muscala on the roster, but Mike Muscala, like I just said, he's improved his outside shot, and you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about team leaders. He's averaging 45.3% from the three-point line, which is absolutely stellar considering that he's a big man, and doing a nice job stretching the floor as a big, being a stretch big player, and it's an asset the Hawks can use. It's good to have him on the roster, good to have him in the rotation, and we're glad he's on the team. So those are our 3 most improved. We hope Bazemore can eventually join that list and get hot from now on, but we'll see. Those are really the 4 young players that have taken strides, or in Bazemore's case, we hope to take strides this season.
And part of that Bazemore discussion, it was inspired by Xavier Cooper from Fansided Soaring Down South. You can make sure to check them out there as well. Good stuff there from them. And I think that just about does it today for the end of our show. Again, this was our Atlanta Hawks episode. And before we go, I want to thank you for finding us, whether it be on our website, atlantasportspodcast.com, on Twitter, @ATLSportscasts, or in any of the major directories, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, or on our YouTube channel. You can find links to all of those on our website. And you can also find our blog. We do try to blog a little bit on our website, atlantasportspodcast.com. And you can also sign up for our newsletter there. We would appreciate it. And if you don't mind, you could leave us a review in one or more of those directories. Tell us how we're doing. We would love to hear from you. And also, if you have any friends that would like to know more about the Atlanta Hawks, Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta Braves, or any of the teams in the state of Georgia, please let them know about us. We would greatly appreciate it. And we hope to see you next week with another show.